You look at someone's face and you think you know what they're feeling. You've been doing it your whole life. A tight jaw, a furrowed brow, a slight pull at the corner of the mouth. Your brain reads these signals instantly, automatically, without any conscious effort. It feels like instinct. It feels like the truth. But what if it isn't? What if the thing you're most certain you're doing, reading other people, is the thing you're doing most wrong? In 1967, a psychologist named Paul Ekman traveled to the highlands of Papua New Guinea with a folder of photographs and a hypothesis. He wanted to know if human facial expressions were universal. If a man who had never seen a television, never traveled beyond his village, never encountered Western culture, would still recognize the same emotions on a face that you would. Ekman showed the photographs to the four people, a tribe largely isolated from the outside world, and asked them to match expressions to short stories. Anger, fear, disgust, happiness, surprise, sadness. The results seemed clear. The four people matched the faces the same way Western college students did. Ekman declared it settled. Facial expressions, he argued, are hardwired into the human species. They are biological, universal, inevitable. For decades, that conclusion became gospel. It shaped how you were taught to read people. It shaped lie detection training for law enforcement. It shaped entire fields of psychology, criminology, and therapy. It shaped the software companies now sell to airlines and employers who claim to measure the emotional states of passengers and job candidates from their faces alone. Software making real decisions about real people every single day. There was just one problem. The conclusion was wrong. Not completely. Not in every direction. But wrong enough to change almost everything you think you know about the face looking back at you across a table. In 2006, a psychologist named Rachel Jack at the University of Glasgow began looking more carefully at the data. She and her colleagues ran experiments comparing how Western, European, and East Asian participants categorized facial expressions, and what they found cracked the foundation of the Ekman's framework. The two groups didn't see the same things. Not reliably. Not consistently. When East Asian participants looked at a face expressing fear, they often read it as a surprise. When they looked at disgust, they sometimes read it as anger. The features they focused on were different. The weight they gave to different parts of the face, the eyes, the brow, the mouth, was different. Your culture doesn't just shape what you believe, it shapes what you literally see. Jack's research suggested that instead of 6 universal expressions, there might be as few as 4 basic categories of facial signal, and that the finer distinctions, the ones you feel absolutely certain you're reading correctly every day, are heavily filtered through the lens of where you grew up, how your people communicate, and what your environment trained you to pay attention to. The map your brain uses to decode a human face was drawn, in large part, by the world around you before you were old enough to question it. But the deeper challenge to everything you think you know about faces came from a different direction entirely. Lisa Feldman Barrett is a neuroscientist at Northeastern University and one of the most important voices reshaping how science thinks about emotion. Her work, laid out in her book How Emotions Are Made, begins with a deceptively simple question. When you feel angry, what is actually happening inside your brain? The classical answer, the one that held for most of the 20th century, is that your brain detects a threat, sends a signal, and a pre-built emotional response fires. The feeling of anger, the heat in your chest, the tightening of your face, the narrowing of your vision. These are the output of a dedicated circuit, a fixed program running on ancient hardware. Barrett looked at decades of neuroimaging data and found that no such dedicated circuit exists. There is no anger region in the brain. There is no fear module. There is no fixed neural address for any specific emotion. What exists instead is a brain that is constantly predicting, running forward simulations of what is about to happen, based on everything it has ever learned, and constructing emotional experiences in real time from those predictions, layered with body signals, cultural concepts, and memory. Your brain doesn't detect emotions. It builds them. And if your brain builds your own emotions from learned concepts and prior experience, then the face you are looking at across the room is not broadcasting a clean signal that your brain is simply receiving. It is presenting raw material. Muscle movements, skin tension, the angle of a gaze, the timing of a blink. And your brain is constructing a story about what those movements mean. That story comes from you. This is why two people can observe the same face and walk away certain they saw completely different things. A tightened jaw reads as confidence to one person and suppressed hostility to another. A blank expression reads as calm to someone who grew up in a family where stillness meant safety, and as cold indifference to someone who grew up where stillness meant you were in trouble. You are not reading the face. You are reading your own history, projected onto it. Think about the last time you were certain someone was angry with you, based entirely on their expression. And you were wrong. Not just once. Think about the pattern of it. How often the face you read so confidently turned out to be carrying something else entirely. Concentration, exhaustion, chronic pain, the quiet weight of a private grief that had nothing to do with you and never did. You weren't misreading. You were reading perfectly, using the only system you have. A prediction engine trained on your specific history, shaped by your specific culture, filtered through your specific fears. The problem isn't that the system is broken. The problem is that nobody ever told you it was a prediction engine at all. A 2019 study by Alan Cowan and Dacher Keltner at the University of California, Berkeley, tried to map the actual range of human emotional expression across cultures, using video data from 144 countries. They found that context. What was happening in the environment around the face was often more predictive of emotional meaning than the face itself. A wide open mouth could mean terror. It could mean ecstatic joy. It could mean the shock of sudden cold water. Without context, the face alone is dramatically underspecified. Your brain fills the gap. And it fills it with a prediction assembled in under a second from everything you've ever seen before. Predictions feel like perception. This is the part that should actually stop you for a moment. You have never in your life passively received information from another person's face. Every single reading you have ever done, every impression, every judgment, every moment of absolute certainty about what someone else was feeling was an act of construction. You assembled it. From fragments of muscle movement, from the tone of the room, from the memory of every face that ever looked like that face, from the emotional vocabulary your culture gave you and the emotional vocabulary it quietly withheld. There is a word for the gap between what a face is actually doing and what you are certain it means. That word is inference. You were never reading. You were always inferring. Now here is where it gets genuinely strange. If your reading of other people's faces is a constructed prediction, then so is their reading of yours. Right now, the people who know you best are not seeing your face. They are seeing their version of your face, filtered through their history, their fears, their learned predictions. When you try to communicate something through your expression and it lands wrong. When they read anger in what you meant as focus, or hurt in what you meant as calm. It is not a failure of communication. It is two prediction engines passing in the dark, each one completely certain of what it saw. Paul Ekman's original insight was not wrong in its spirit. There is something universal in the human face. The muscles are the same across every human being alive. The capacity for expression is shared. Across every culture that has ever existed, a human face can carry meaning that another human can feel. But the specific map, which movement means what, the precise translation of a brow angle into an emotional state, the certainty with which you read a stranger's jaw as hostile, that is not biology. That is a biography. It is the accumulated record of every face you have ever tried to understand, every time you get it right, and every time you get it wrong without knowing it. The next time you look at someone's face and feel a flash of absolute certainty, you know exactly what they're feeling. You've seen this before. You understand this person. Pause for just a moment. Not to doubt yourself entirely, but to hold the difference between a fact and a prediction. The face is real. Whatever the person is experiencing is real. But the meaning you are reading into it belongs, at least in part, to you. You look at someone's face and you think you know what they're feeling. You've been doing it your whole life. And in all that time, what you were really doing. With every glance, every misread, every moment you were certain you understood, was learning the precise contours of your own mind.